back, everybody, to Getting on My Nerves. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Armin Schwarzbach from Germany. He is known for Armin Labs, and his wealth of knowledge about Lyme disease is astounding. My co-host, Sophie Ward, is with us today. Welcome,
Hi, everybody.
Armin?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
I'm here.
So we've been looking forward to having you on here for a while. Sophie and I talked about it last year, and I'm like, we got to get Armin on. And so we're just so excited to have you here today. Thank
you very much for your invitation. And I know you're living in the Sunshine State. You told me before. I'm actually in Italy, which is also sunny. And Sophie is unfortunately maybe in a little rainy country in Great Britain, but ticks like humidity, so you can imagine where are most of the ticks now. I think in Great Britain, in England, where Sophie is.
Well, Armin, what I'd like to do is, like, when I first met you in 2017 at the Lyme conference that was here in Orlando. You remember that?
That's a long time ago, yeah. The crisis was not so good for all of us, so it divorced Angie and myself, so horrible time, but now we are back.
Yes. So that's when I first learned about your labs and like how they worked. I remember you having the microscope there to be able to look. You were testing people's blood there. It was a really cool conference because it had a lot of good displays and talks and just learning about everything. But I was amazed at how in depth you go with the testing in your labs. It's not, you test for like the co-infections and the different strands of Lyme, and then you test for the vitamin deficiencies. It's just totally different than any lab that I had been to. You want to tell us how you started your lab and go from there?
Yes, traditionally, I'm a medical doctor. This is maybe my advantage, and I'm at the same time a laboratory doctor. So 2 qualifications: internal medicine, infectious disease, and so I know about the problems more than I knew before. When I worked for bigger laboratories here in Germany, I didn't know the problems with the antibody tests for Lyme disease, for Borrelia burgdorferi pathogen. I was convinced if there are no antibodies in your blood, you don't suffer from Lyme disease. But I learned a lot about this, started in 2003, 2004, so over 20 years ago now. I had my first patient with multiple sclerosis symptoms, and that time, I believed really that if antibodies are negative, you can exclude Lyme disease. So, okay. But then somebody talked with me and said, oh, we have a different test. It's a cellular test. We have a ELISpot or LTT test, it was named that time. We have a special test, cellular test. And we did it on that patient, but I was so critical, you cannot imagine that. I really believed in the antibodies. And antibodies were negative, spinal fluid negative. So the neurologist said, no multiple sclerosis. Okay. A patient was sitting in a wheelchair, blindness on the left eye, 40 years old, could not go to work. She was a nurse, hopeless, nearly dying. And then I did this test with my laboratory, very critical. And the test was positive, this ELISpot, the cellular test. And so what, the doctor, the GP of this patient called me and said, colleague, could it be, I was just working laboratory, in Germany, it's strongly working laboratory doctors. Medical doctors work more in the clinics, like in other countries. So, and the colleague, the other doctor called me and he said, yes, could it be Lyme disease? Although the antibodies are negative. I said, oh, maybe. Then we discussed about treatment options. I said, okay, the best treatment is 3 weeks Rocephin that time, 2004, around that time. And you could not believe that the patient was cured. The patient was cured. Multiple sclerosis was blown away. I said, what's happening? The hell? I named it a system failure. I said, what is with this antibodies shit? Forget about the antibodies. The patient is dying, false negative antibodies. And then more and more you look behind the scenery, you see how horrible these antibody tests are. And I think in America, it's still, the leading laboratories are still doing antibodies. antibodies, whatever lab you ask, also the highly qualified labs. And I'm so convinced that antibodies are not the solution. You need to look more for the cellular immune system, the Th1 system it's named, and we do a lot of these ELISpot. And by that, also in England, Sophie, we found also the Cortal family. So I out with Lyme disease, I could mention that because it was officialized. So it's not a problem. When I was starting in 2003 with that, I thought it's just a problem of one patient, but after that, it's thousands, maybe it's 100,000 or millions of patients suffering from Lyme disease without knowing. And with a false negative antibody test, I see it every day. No Western blot positive, no immunoblot positive, nothing. And then you cannot exclude Lyme disease, please.
Yeah.
Sophie?
It's so hard as well, because I know in the UK, we're still up against the doctors not like when I had my test through your labs and obviously sent my bloods to Germany and everything like that, got back, got the positive, and they were like, these are fake, these aren't real, you know, you don't have Lyme disease. Like NHS don't recognize Lyme disease, you don't have it, they don't want to treat it. And they tried to section me because they thought I was crazy and that I was like losing my mind. So we're up against it in the UK still to this day. Like they don't recognize labs outside of like under the NHS basically, because they want to treat what they want to treat, but they don't understand there's so many diseases that are up and coming. And, you know, COVID should have been the scare for them, that they need to be more open-minded about these diseases coming, you know, forward, and actually be willing to treat patients and be open-minded with different tests coming in, that, you know, don't be closed-minded and don't shut yourself off, because otherwise you have a really bad like epidemic, pandemic situation.
Yes.
Exactly, that's the point. So long it belongs to rare diseases, important down. I think they switched now the institute, but still it's rare disease. You don't care about a rare disease. Should you care about SARS-CoV-2? Is it a rare disease or was it a rare disease? Whatever. So the ticks are coming with the climate change, you know, and the people are going more outside. That's different than in the 50s or 40s, where you have the industrial time where the employees were all in the inside and not going outside. So we work outside. We have a reduction of our working time in the country. So we need to go outside, and outside is the danger. You know, inside is you can get infected from your domestic with a tick coming inside, bringing the tick inside. It's named in-house infection. Also under the Christmas tree, babies could be infected, as an example, or children. So this is really problematic, and the people simply don't know. I think in America, the park rangers in some of the parks, they inform when you go outside the park rangers, they say, here maybe it's a risk of the tick, but in England, no rare disease. In Germany, no rare disease. So why should you inform the population? And we have a lot of actions. Also, I went to House of Parliaments, House of Lords 3 times, but it's really so difficult. We don't understand why it's so difficult, because so many sufferers in England.
Yeah, I know. And there's obviously this Breakspear Medical Centre where I get treated, but other than like private doctors, which you have to pay so much money to even see a consultant and actually be seen and treated, like there's no help, there's no advice, there's no nothing. You're just deemed as a like person that's mentally unstable, which is just so sad when you're trying to fight for your own health, and you're not doing it to be a troublemaker. You're doing it because you want to try and save your life.
Yeah, we need to educate the doctors or the students. They need the education from universities on, you know. I studied medicine 6 years, so I know how it was taught about Lyme disease. That time, okay, it was the 80s. In the 80s, Willy Burgdorfer found it out. It was a very young disease, but it was completely, we were taught about HIV infection, the AIDS virus with Freddie Mercury in the 80s, but not about Lyme disease. And then came on the ticks, and then came H. pylori, the gut pathogen, early 90s. So eradication of that, we never could imagine that such a pathogen, such a bacteria can survive in the stomach acid. Nobody could. And now the ticks. Now it's tick time. You know, we care now. Now we have the Lyme Awareness Month, and I think this is a unique opportunity also to bring it into the consciousness. But still, it's a really difficult. It's political, to be sure, very political thing. We need to be careful whatever we say. We need a lot of science also to show that. Without science, we cannot convince the mainstream of doctors, neurologists, psychiatric, as you mentioned. They send you all to psychiatric hospitals. That's what's happening in Germany. You have psychiatric. We cannot see the infection in your face. You know, you're looking really well. What's your problem?
Yeah, exactly. And then you doubt yourself because you get in your own head thinking, am I the one that doesn't know my body properly? Am I the one that's making it all up? Because the people who are medical professionals are telling you that, and then you seem to lose yourself as well.
Yeah, the main problem we have are the guidelines. You know, the guidelines, they are the laws for the medical world. Okay, and the guidelines are wrong. They're completely wrong. They're not respecting any study with the ILISpot as an example. Not about long-term endurance. They all say it's bad, it's shit what you're doing. Your skeleton, it's skeletonism. So this is not the way we want to discuss in medicine, you know. So what to do? Science. And also, you know, maybe ILADS in America. I'm on the ILADF board. We do in 3 weeks the European conference. We want to bring science into it. We want to do studies, you know. But studies need money and they need acceptance that you are allowed to do the studies. So they block the studies. The referees in the journals, they block our studies. So it's always that situation, and patients suffering, and maybe they're dying from myocarditis. You could die from Lyme disease, to be honest, from myocarditis.
I got to tell you, like in the United States, it's not much better. You know, if you get a CDC positive test, which I had I had 2 of them back in 2014. You know how many doctors have told me that's not real, that's not, I'm like, I am registered with the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm like, I know why, you know, they want to keep track of you. Like here, the CDC wants to keep track of you and see how well you do, if you die, if you get better. But it's still like, that's like what we have as a legitimate thing. Doctors don't recognize it. I know someone that was just recently diagnosed last fall, like in November, December, with Lyme disease. She is going to doctors now, and specialist, neurologist, I can't talk, you know, eye doctors. Say that.
Ophthalmologist.
Right. But rheumatologists, like they have no clue about Lyme disease. In this day and age, in 2024, in the United States, they do not know about Lyme disease. Now, I know my primary care physician, he would have residents come in. And like the 1st and 2nd year residents, they'd be up against the wall when he told them I had Lyme disease. They were like scared. But the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year residents, they would sit down and say, can I ask you questions? We learn like a sentence about Lyme disease, and it's about acute Lyme, not chronic. So like things have got to change. Like we're all out here advocating and we're spreading awareness and knowledge that we've learned and we know, but it's got to change.
The problem is the patients don't have the power, the mental power, or they have a lot of fatigue and a lot of problems. You know, they cannot walk or they cannot work. You know, they are really in a very weak position. They are not strong persons going on the street. Some of them can do that. This is really a problem that they are homebound. They cannot go outside, housebound. They cannot really go outside from the houses, and sitting in wheelchairs, and in the end they end really in the psychiatric hospitals. You know, I don't want to know how many patients in psychiatric hospitals are suffering from infections like Lyme disease, not just this, also tick-borne or other viruses, parasites, whatever. Infections are completely underrepresented in the medical world. Nobody's teaching that. There's no special qualification for that. It's a self-education of our doctors. You don't get paid what you're doing your services from the normal health insurances. These are all the big problems for your patients. So you are maybe the first or second generation of patients. Let's see, maybe in 20 years it will be different. But I have a little hope, the SARS-CoV-2 that brought more the infection into consciousness. So we discuss more about reactivation of EBV, CMV, HHV6, chlamydia, mycoplasma. That was never happening before. And to be honest, the ticks are dirty needles. It's not just Lyme disease, but we need to start with Lyme disease. Our flag is Lyme disease flag, okay? But in the end, we need to learn more about all of this co-infection, reactivation, immune dysfunction, immune system inflammation. So that plays for sure a role, what I postulate the 3I model now. We learned that from SARS-CoV-2. It's not just infection, it's just not just Lyme disease. We have an inflammation in every infection, inflammation. You have autoimmune disorders, you get cancer. And you have by that also the immune suppression, the immune dysfunction. So what to do? It's not just using antibiotics, it's a complex thing. But I want to talk with doctors, they say, oh, he's the uncle from the moon, they don't believe me what I'm talking. It's really complicated for them. We are professionals. We're doing the whole day the same. Similar. We are very well self-educated. There's no good teaching book about that, and so on and so on. So, but first we need to change the guidelines. We say, okay, we have more literature, papers against the guidelines. Switch the guidelines, and then it will be more on the universities, more in the community of doctors around that. And why should they also try to defeat us? There are a lot of bad actions against us. We are minority. We are the Davids. We are the Goliaths. They all fight against us. So I know that they want to take away licenses. So a lot of doctors lost licenses. That's everywhere around the world. In Australia, horrible. In England, in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, in Denmark, they all threaten the doctors who just care about the word Lyme disease. Now that Lyme disease, and they get a shock, and they get their blood pressure is going high of the doctors. So that is not a serious discussion what we want to do.
You talk about reactivation, and I remember you telling me this back in 2018. You don't want to poke the bear. Once you get into like a wellness state, you get the Lyme disease and co-infections asleep. You don't want to poke the bear. But what if there's something out of your control that pokes the bear? Like for me, I had gotten into wellness in 2018 and I stayed in wellness for 14 months. Then here comes COVID, and I caught COVID twice back to back in early 2020 before anybody really knew what was going on. And I have been struggling ever since. I had to start all over. So what are your tips on that?
Yes, I was sick myself, I had also Lyme disease when I was 6 years. My parents put oil on the ticks. It was 1969, so now I'm 60 years old. But they put oil on the tick, and I'm sure the tick was spitting in late 60s the spirochete in my body. But I control that, my ELISpot is high, but I don't have Lyme symptoms for sure. I had a different story with my gut with a Coxsackie virus infection without knowing that. So they removed my tonsils in the 70s. That was not Streptococcus, that was Coxsackie, a gut virus. And now I'm so convinced that the gut plays 80%, 90% the role of our natural immunity. So if you have a good gut situation, your natural immune system is better. But on the other side, you have a very strong invader. Maybe some of these Borrelia burgdorferi can be so aggressive to you, such that you need the antibiotics, although the antibiotics destroy your gut, so the dysbiosis, your natural immune system is going down. And what I can tell you from own stories, it's not just all Lyme disease, we have persistent forms, Borrelia can persist. We have a special test, the Tickplex basic, perfect test. We find 98% of the antibodies with Tickplex basic for round bodies, spirochete, intracellular. They survive, like the spike protein. It's in the macrophages. It can be everywhere, and it's immunogen. And this weakens our immune system for sure and makes inflammation. So we need to check also for persistent forms. And I think I live with Lyme disease. So a lot of us can live with Lyme disease, but some cannot live with it. And then you need harder actions. You need the antibiotics or whatever, or herbal remedies from Pune or whatever, Samento, what they can do there. So you have a lot of treatment options, but if you ignore Lyme disease, you never will get treated for Lyme disease. That's the point. And the patients, they are full of knowledge, better than the doctors. That's very interesting. The patients know more than the medical doctors, or some of them. And then they go to the doctors, GPs, and they say, no, you're crazy, you idiot. I know more than you. But you know more than the doctors. You cannot imagine. That's because we have now internet, we have websites, we have the community, we have these channels, we can now do this podcast. It's a different time. The patients know more than the doctors. It's a really aggressive situation with the doctors, and they do defense. Lyme disease doesn't exist. Go to the other doctor. This is the snowball principle, and so you cannot get any chance. But why do they should care for your immune system? That's the easy way. They should help you to support your immune system. Anti-inflammatory therapies. This is a general, and then you feel better. And I'm sure that you have some spike protein circulating in your body. We can do an IgA test for it, or interleukin-2, or iSpot for it. So we see if it's still circulating your spike protein. And that makes also really complications. We have now a wave of long COVID, post-vac, combinations of that. You cannot imagine that. And more younger patients getting really not too panicking, but they're getting cancer now. It's a horrible situation. Autoimmune Hashimoto, we never have seen that. Also the statistics of the WHO is going up. More cancer, younger people. Yeah, why? That's the reason why do we have more cancer now? Don't threaten you or others. But I think this SARS-CoV-2 was also not good for our bodies, like it is Lyme disease.
I agree. I agree.
Because which countries do you find easier to sort of test and treat patients in, do you find? Because obviously me and Angie have both been up against it in our own countries, but I'm just wondering if there's like certain countries that you've dealt with that are quite open-minded rather than closed-minded.
I think traditionally, nothing against me that I'm German, but I think Germany is on the forefront of this because we have a very long tradition with Hildegard von Bingen and Sebastian Kneipp, and then in USA they name it German herbal therapies. This very long tradition since the Middle Ages here. But if you go back to the ancient Greece, you see also that Hippocrates, and they also worked with natural remedies, to support the immune system, to make detox. And so, this is nothing new. I think the origin were maybe the Egyptian doctors, and then the Greece doctors, and then maybe Greek doctors, and then maybe in the Middle Ages, also Italy. Italy has a very long tradition. China has a very long tradition. So reishi and all of these mushrooms, therapies, TCM. But this is more accepted. The traditional stuff is more accepted than if you say, oh, we have something new developed, a new herb against Borrelia or whatever. This is always attacked now.
I've been having good results with mushrooms, actually. I've been researching them for probably like last year, and then I just started putting them in my diet. The reishi's awesome, and I've been using, I'm on reishi, lion's mane, and I'll be introducing chaga, which I read on PubMed about the chaga attacking and killing the spike protein of COVID. So I'm hopeful that maybe that's going to help with some of the long haulers stuff, because I noticed COVID was different than Lyme. Like Lyme, for me, Lyme would cycle every 3 to 4 weeks. Excuse me. COVID, after I had it and I had the long tail version, I noticed a cycling of 5 to 6 weeks. So it's like you get to feeling better. Maybe you'd be down. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. You'd be down, like you'd feel bad for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then you might have a week or two, and then it would cycle again. So it was just crazy. But I'm seeing really great results with the mushrooms. They've been around for thousands of years. Like, they're amazing.
what helps, and you need to respect. In the Hippocratic Oath, we swear that, all doctors swear that, or should swear, also in America, also in Scandinavia, also in England, but they don't know about that. So it says you need to respect the opinion of the other doctors, and if the other doctor is helpful, you need to have respect. So also, if you play soccer or American football, we respect each other, but not in medicine. In medicine, we attack, we try to destroy, we try to make financial problems. There's no respect in this field, nothing. And this is an ethical problem too. There's a lot of ethical action was going on there with United Nations for Lyme disease, for sure, with this diagnostic keys, so that you say neuroborreliosis exists, or it could be transmitted maybe during pregnancies or so, but everything is blocked. If you name it Lyme disease, it's blocked. It's better not to name it Lyme disease. It's better to say, maybe I suffer from chronic inflammation or chronic multisystemic illness or whatever. This is, and the doctor is no risk. The doctor, if a doctor is naming Lyme disease also, you're under control and you're on the radar, and then they will try to defeat you, to attack you, and take away your license. That's always the same in the countries. In Germany, we have maybe a little more open-minded situation. We have a liberal party going on, no atomic energy, and so our parties now are very open-minded, although they want also to remove the homeopathic remedies. Homeopathy should be removed. Yes, they try, but the Green Party says no, we cannot remove this because it helps green people, more liberal people, more free nature people. This is so political, and it's such a nonsense. So you take away more options for patients. They say you need to show studies. Then let us do studies, but they block the studies, and then you cannot show the studies about homeopathy in Germany. If you block it, you cannot show. This is really unfair and unethical situation.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like they've added work to their workload by trying to block things and being closed-minded, because it just keeps building and building and building up for them. And then, like we said before, it just all explodes and you have like a pandemic effect. And then they don't know what to do. And it's just like rush, panic.
Yeah. So, Sophie, why? What is the reason for that? Question to you. What do you think? Why do they block it? Does it make sense? They're doctors. They want to help you. They have the Hippocratic Oath. Is it ethical not to help you in NHS?
I think the NHS is so overwhelmed, and obviously the doctors within the NHS are underpaid for what they do, which obviously is wrong to begin with. But anything that's complex, that's not textbook, like for instance, Lyme disease, they get a 25-minute lesson throughout the whole of their 5-year medical university degree for Lyme disease. But if it's complex and they can't treat it with a pill or put you on an IV drip or whatever, they just don't want to even deal with it. If it doesn't show up on a scan, you're fine. If your bloods are fine, you're fine. It's that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I think also a point is that they don't understand the tests. When I talk with the doctors, they don't understand what they are against. I'm against everything. All false positive. Okay, all false positive. What are you telling? A test is a test. What are the symptoms? You need to correlate the symptom with the laboratory result. So this is the way medical doctors are. Medical doctor too. So we work that way. But nevertheless, we have hope. There are some doctors are fighting with us together. We are Lyme fighters. We have a group of Lyme fighting people. It's a real fight. It's an unethical fight against us. It's a discrimination. It's really a problem of our group. It's not just and you're sick. You cannot help so much as it is with an army of soldiers. They can fight, but we cannot fight. We are in a very defense situation now, and we need to do something to find together and make us stronger. But nevertheless, it's dangerous, to be honest, and we need to keep under the radar. The doctor is not so easy. We have now attacks in Poland. We had attacks Denmark from Danish television. I had attacks also from this television, and they are so aggressive. This bad journalism, you cannot imagine that. They fake samples, whatever they are doing. It's not medicine I want to do, to be honest.
Yeah.
But so long I'm strong, I will fight also for the Lyme patients. So I will never give up. We'll never give up. So, but they can kill us, destroy us, whatever, but we will never give up in the end. So this is nonsense. You're the patient and we need to care. And what is NHS? NHS is a very strong direction of guidelines. You need to do what the guidelines telling you, like in Scandinavia, maybe. But this is not the individualism. We are individualists. Messi is playing individual soccer player. He's a talent. Without this player, Argentina never would have won the championships. The world championships. So you need individualism, and every patient is different from the other. You cannot standardize a rule. And these guidelines, to mention that, they are just recommendation level. They are not the rules. There are no laws. No, they are very weak in the evidence-based level. We are very weak, and they don't respect our studies. We did a lot of studies. They are not respected. They vote always against our studies and try everything to attack them. This is such a nonsense. We try to attack them, and they try to attack us. So, but they are majority. It's David versus Goliath. So, but who's behind that? What is now a question mark? Who'd be behind that? That's a question.
Yeah, it is right, because it's like it is who's dictating what's sort of allowed and what's treated, what's not treated, or who they're going to put down today, with the results. And I know that Angie feels the same, but we've been faced with like so much like medical trauma that we're so like thankful for like people like you and the doctors that we have found that have been helping us, because without you guys, like we would feel completely lost. And I hate going to my local doctor because I know that they're just going to look at me and think I'm like losing my mind and tell me just to go home and not actually help me. So you get to the point where you feel like you're fighting on your own, and that's a lonely place to be, but also a very frightening place to be.
Yeah, you never give up, we never give up. Okay, but we want to say a warm welcome to the doctors and say, okay, if you're open-minded, please discuss, and we can discuss this case and not attack. This should be medicine for the best way to help you. You're in the focus, not me, not the other doctor. They earn the money for sure, but I earn the money. But you're in the middle, so we need a good solution. And my sentence is always: who helps the patient has the right on his or her side. So if we help you, that's the way. If we diagnose you correctly, that's the way. So why should you attack this? And if we can help you, like this multiple sclerosis patient, where I helped, or Alzheimer's patient, whatever you find, rheumatoid arthritis, or the chronic. This is very complex, but nevertheless, not all is Lyme disease. Also, we need to be careful not to overdiagnose and not to do too much provocation. So we can say everything is Lyme disease, but this is also not correct. If you have symptoms, the symptoms are not specific all for Lyme disease. What we have seen over the last 10 years before SARS-CoV-2, can we find a lot of these reactivations with parasites, yeast, mold, and viruses. So I think I diagnosed more viruses in England, as an example, viral infections, than Lyme disease. Lyme, around 30% are positive in the results, but for viruses, herpes, varicella zoster, okay, maybe SARS-CoV-2 plays a role on that. I think it's 70-80% positive results. So we have in every patient multiple infections. To say you start with Lyme disease, but later on you have immune suppression, reactivation, and then you suffer from chronic multiple infections and or reactivated infections. It's like long COVID. And multiple sclerosis, interestingly, also there was a study published in England that 70% they suffer from reactivations of EBV infections. Maybe you heard about that, Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. Yeah. So, but they didn't check for Lyme disease the same time. But I can tell you, it's not just one infection. Every patient we diagnose has multiple infections active. If it's getting chronic, it's not just one.
Have you noticed that when people test positive for Lyme, and then they retest to see how they're doing, do you recommend people getting retested? Because I know that the Epstein-Barr can elevate falsely when you have active Lyme. So what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, this is a problem where one laboratory in America, the leading laboratory, is writing now in the comments, oh, if the IgM is positive, this in the antibodies, this can cross-react with viruses. But it's not just EBV, it's parvovirus B19, it's a CMV, cytomegalovirus. It can be echovirus. It can be herpes simplex virus on the lips or so. So you need to be careful to say this is high specific antibody. It's a polyclonal stimulation by that. But you're absolutely correct. If you find that isolated IgM antibodies, you always should check for viruses. So we write it in all comments like other laboratories now. Or it's both, who knows? And if you do follow-up tests, what you mentioned, you can find out, is it now Borrelia burgdorferi, the IgM coming from, or is it maybe cytomegalovirus or parvovirus B19? They are doing the same symptoms, joint arthritis. Parvovirus B19 is carditis, chronic fatigue, cognitive problems. It's also joint arthritis. It can do a lot of symptoms as like Lyme disease, and you cannot differentiate that. But in the dynamic process of these antibodies and the ELISpot, the cellular test, and the natural killer cells, we can exactly. This is my job. I'm laboratory doctor for that. It's a dynamic process. If you do one antibody, you get lost. If you do just one ELISpot, you get lost. You need them. You would say now, okay, you want to make money. No, this is in everybody. It's a dynamic Th1, Th2 balance or disbalance going on. If you have a very bullseye rash as an example, you have the ELISpot positive and no antibodies in the beginning. After a while, you produce the antibodies. They got induced from the ELISpot before antibodies, and then you have both in a balance. And then there's a decision. What's happening with your body now? It's like with a spike protein, the same immunological situation. Then the question is it Th2 more dominant? Then you get autoimmune. Th1 ELISpot is going down after a while. Natural killer cells breaking down. That's very bad for patients. If you lose natural killer cells, you also need to do therapies to bring them up. My natural killer cells are not so good, to be honest. CD56 are not so good, CD57, so I need to work on that. But I work on my immune system for that. But Borrelia is also active. But I would never take now antibiotics because I have a gut virus. I had a gut virus. I know exactly. Then I would destroy the dysbiose again, and this to build up. So it's better to treat the virus first, or treat the immune system at the same time, treat the inflammation, and then you feel strong, like I'm strong, very strong. So, and but also stress triggered, stress. It's SARS-CoV-2. We learned that. Stress always not good. The cortisol, the adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, the pregnenolone, the hormones play important role. So now we are here, Sophie. Can you imagine that your GP could do that job? What I mentioned now? No. The GP would send you to a lot of other experts, and they would say you're psychiatric. Oh?
Yeah, and also, if you went to your local doctor and you said, "Oh, I've got a clinic that's like 2 hours away. Can I go and see a consultant there?" They'd be like, "No, you've got to go to the doctors in your area. Like, you're not allowed to move out of that area. Otherwise, it's like you're in the wrong for trying to fund your own treatment." But yeah, they don't. It's very much cliquey, so you have to stay in your local area. But yeah, if you went to them and said, "Look, I need something to support my immune system. I need something to help my gut," they'd look at you and be like, "Well, we're not here to do that. Go to a herbal shop."
Yeah, you need more. If you have tinnitus from Lyme disease, you need an ear, nose, throat doctor, but he doesn't know about Lyme disease. He will diagnose and treat you for tinnitus, If you have the abducens paralysis from Borrelia or Bell's palsy, you go to a neurologist or ophthalmologist. That's a difficult word. We need to learn that.
I know, you can't say it either.
Sophie, maybe you could pronounce it.
I'm rubbish with stuff like that.
But Lyme is multi-systemic. It can inflame every part of your body. You can lose your hair. You can get acrodermatitis of your hair. There are studies. So you lose your hair. It's not hormonal. And you treat with antibiotics, hair is coming back. I had 2 patients of that. You could get diabetes insipidus. So the water is coming out from your bladder like hell. I had a patient from England years ago. This is the ADH. This is the hypophysis, which is inflamed. Everything is described. There are so many interesting case reports about it, but the doctors don't know anything. But no. Mr. Google is good. Mr. Google is good.
Oh, sorry, Sophie.
I've not. No, I was just going to say, I've not really heard much.
Armin, when you were talking about when you're going to the bathroom a lot, what is that caused by? What were you saying?
Sorry, to what?
When you were just talking about how you just go to the bathroom and you go, the urine you pee all day long.
A bath with the urine, in fact, you need this diabetes insipidus, its name.
Yes.
So you lose a lot of urine. That was a manager from England 8 years ago. And I treated him for Lyme disease and I treated with antibiotics and he got cured. And it was an inflammation of the hypophysis in the brain, the ADH, antidiuretical hormone. Its name, this was low. I proved that. And there are some case reports in literature. This is just one of the stories after, if you're just doing Lyme disease and other infections, you remember some of these really, very prominent cases. You will never forget this, but other doctors don't know that.
Wow. Do you think that that's why a lot of people go chronic? This is my theory. When you go, if say someone knew they got bit by a tick, they went in, they treat them with, a few weeks of doxycycline, they think they'll be fine. But they don't know if that tick had co-infections or, other viruses. It could have it's like you said, it's the dirty needle.
Doxycycline is not intracellular working, please. We have these infections intracellular persist. You need to go intracellular also. Doxycycline is a very easy drug, and a lot of pathogens are not reacting on it. So we need combination. In Germany, we use the minocycline, which is a second generation of a tetracycline. Which is better in also pharmacology. I studied 2 years pharmacology. So minocycline is penetrating the spinal fluid, 40%, doxycycline just 6%. So how can you treat neuroborreliose with doxycycline? Impossible. Pharmacology. This has nothing to do with the discussion with Lyme disease or not. It's nonsense to use doxycycline in neuroborreliose. It's completely nonsense. Rocephin, the same. It's just extracellular working, not intracellular. So what is intracellular? Claritromycin, azithromycin, the macrolide groups, telithromycin, whatever. You have the metronidazoles, the tinidazoles. This pharmacology, also the doctors don't understand. They have the guidelines, doxycycline 2 weeks, and this is the rule how to defeat a pathogen. Okay, treat 2 weeks tuberculosis, and then it's fine. Okay, this is such a nonsense. You need to treat an infection so long the infection is active and so long the patient has symptoms. And also you induce, this is the opposite side, you induce antibiotic resistances. You need to be careful. We have a lot of MRSA in the world, VRSE, Enterococcus, and they can kill you. 30% of us have MRSA in our noses without knowing in the throat. And then so the antibiotic world, the chemical drugs are not so bad to say that, but I don't see a good future for that because we see so many with parasites, with virus reactivations, yeast, mold, and we need different approaches, So it's not enough just to use antibiotics. Maybe we need a virostatic or anti-fungi remedy, something like that, flunazole or whatever. So we have a lot of options for that, but we need to know what to treat. If you don't know what to treat and you are now focused on the Lyme Awareness Month, we all treat just Lyme disease, where I studied also. It could be also, I name it a one-way street with a dead end. And if you don't come forward within 2-3 months with doxycycline, rocephin combination, whatever, dapsone, daptomycin, disulfiram, whatever you use, 2-3 months, and you don't react on it, forget it. You need to change, you need to rethink what you want to treat. I'm sure you don't react on that. You could get Herxheimer's is good if you get a Herxheimer-like reaction. The first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, first months, coming back, this is a good sign. Then please don't stop treatment. You're on the right track, you will improve. But most doctors, the GPs, stop treatment. They say now, oh, you have a bad reaction, so it's a side effect. I stop it now. You have a kidney failure now, or a liver failure. No, this is a Herxheimer-like reaction. It's a good thing. Herxheimer means a very strong protein destruction of Borrelia. They are proteins, and swapping around our blood and lymphatic system. So we need for sure a detox, and the viruses, they all do fatigue, Borrelia they all block our mitochondria. We need for everybody mitochondrial therapies. We need gut therapies. We need lymphatic therapies. We need detox for everybody. So this is not the discussion, why should we discuss it and say, oh, this should be in a general, but we need to know what to treat. And if Borrelia is active, for sure, we need antibiotic. If a parasite is active, we need antiparasital. If both are active, we need antiparasital plus antibiotics. Doctors need to know what to treat. Otherwise, you will come in dead end straight and you will fail.
So stepping into that, letting doctors know what they need to treat and how, that would be where your labs come in. So how would, I've had people asking me because they knew you were how can I get tested with Armin Labs in the United States? Because I know you got your accreditation here last year for the United States. So how can someone in the United States use your labs?
Thank you for this question. Yeah, I'm so happy coming back to USA and where you live, Florida. I have a lot of good friends and so, and conferences, and yeah, I like America. I fear the ticks there at the East Coast. I'm very careful when I go to Manassas and so to national parks, so I know high risk. And how can you reach us? Yeah, we have the first to say maybe 2 sentences. We have the CAP accreditation because I said to myself, now we cannot get the samples in from America. There was this lockdowns and the flights problem, so no chance. So we did, meanwhile, the CAP, the Clinical American Pathologist Accreditation. CLIA is included in this, so CAP is the state of art, and this is strongly controlled from American authorities. So they cannot attack my tests. That's guideline number 1. Okay, so please ask all of your labs, do you have CAP accreditation? If they don't have it, they can get attacked and they can do doubts on your laboratory tests. Then we did the same. We refreshed our European accreditation for England. We have the UCAS also that allow us to do work on British samples, because authorities also tried to attack me 8 years ago from England, send me letters, so it's not allowed without a German accreditation. And the UCAS, they cooperate these accreditation bodies, they are the official bodies, and if you have all of that, they cannot attack you, also in Canada. So they cannot say the laboratory, they can say the laboratory test is maybe false positive. Okay. Then you have the arguments. Is it now unspecific, or is the patient sick or not? Or why do you say it's now, how did you correlate the symptoms with the test? Because they mix up the test specificity and the clinical specificity, and the patient, you are doing the specificity. If you have Lyme typical symptoms and the Borrelia test, tick plaques or ELISpot is positive in my laboratory, this is a high predictive value, and the test is not false positive, because it's not unspecific because you have the symptoms. But if you don't have symptoms, you don't do a test. Why should you do a test and pay money if you are asymptomatic? It doesn't make sense in reality. So send samples. We have now a distributor. It's Wilberto Castillo. He worked for environmental group, and he has this Alianza. He has a company also where you can send easily from whole USA, from whole Canada. It's not a problem. So logistics is working perfectly, much better than it was before crisis. Maybe they learned also a little about that prices are affordable of the logistics, but increasing now the prices, the fuel, because all not so easy for all of us. But the doctors, so long they reject to take the blood, we have a problem.
Is there a specific way that the blood has to be taken and then shipped to you?
Yeah, that's a challenge of these special tests. You need special tubes. I developed that I think 15 years ago with Sarsten, and then Beck & Dickinson has also some of these tubes now, BD for the American market. So these are special cellular stabilizing tubes. So we have 3 to 4 days time, also from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, to bring the samples in 3-4 days time. That's fine. Sometimes it's a little problematic because in Germany we had strikes on logistics. You know, Germany is a strike country, number 1 in the world politically. But nevertheless, we bring in 99% of the samples right in time. And that's good and makes it affordable. And production costs, I think, in Germany are okay. So I don't want to earn the money from the patient so much. I want to help as much as possible, as many as possible patients for fair prices and so on, not to overprice that. You know, we should not fill our pockets from the poor patients. Although you say it's expensive, okay. The reagents prices are more expensive now, but if we are fair to the patients, we get broader in community. This is a charity, you know, also we are doing, and I will do my very, very best also for American patients, not just for British or European patients. That's my heart, you know.
So should they just go to arminlabs.com? I'm shouting you out right now. arminlabs.com if they're here in the US?
I'm not the only laboratory. We have competitors also in Germany doing similar tests. I go now to Dubai. In Dubai, it's Emirates, it's exclusive. They don't have these tests, but it's still in a niche, but more and more are coming. Also in England, they are interested in this test. Also companies to produce similar tests. So you cannot stop the development which came from SARS-CoV-2. You know, SARS-CoV-2, this was bad for some people, killing them, but it was good for infectious diseases to bring it more into consciousness, you know, to learn more about immunity, immune system, inflammation, autoimmune disorders. Now the long COVID patients, also Lyme disease can be reactivated in this. We have studies about that, papers. So it's coming more, so you cannot stop this. SARS-CoV-2 was for us in the medical world, in our infectious disease, bringing us a little forward, let me say so.
Yes. A lot of information. I remember when I went at that conference, you had like a paper and it had like all of the things that you test for. I'd never seen a lab like test for all of that, specifically with Lyme and the co-infections, but like all the different viruses, all the fun, like everything. I was just amazed. And I had never heard of your lab before then. So I learned a lot.
Thank you. Yes, still, I worked in infectious diseases in the early 90s, but please excuse me, I never diagnosed Lyme disease. It didn't exist in our hospital, so I'm traditionally educated. And 10 years later, I changed my mind and my behavior in the medical world. I get more complementary, maybe more holistic this way. You know, Dietrich Klinghardt is one of my best friends in the world or so, and Lee Cowden and Stephen Buhner. And Schaller is also, we have a little group. We understand each other, what we are doing. So, but on the other side, my heart is still fighting for you, and we will never give up to fight for you and bring all the topics forward. And we have the checklist developed because I say if nobody has the money, or some don't have the money for it, it's better to know a direction. We have now parasite symptom checklist. I have a parasitologist in my laboratory. He's really a great expert for parasites. Dr. Putiano, he's now in Romania today, teaching, educating clinics in Romania, and he's a parasitologist, and we need to bring up evidence into parasitology. Yeast and mold, I don't have an expert for that. I myself more a virologist now, not because I did 100,000 of SARS-CoV-2 tests from swabs or so. We did so many PCRs, we learned also by that. But I'm still Lyme fighter, you know, German Lyme fighter. But I want to bring more knowledge in all of these 5 groups: bacteria, chlamydia, mycoplasma, Yersinia, Campylobacter, gut infections, viruses, parasites, yeast, and mold. And if we come into that, I have developed the multiple infection checklist. This costs nothing, I want to say. You can download from the website this checklist. It costs nothing, and then you know direction, no discussion with your GP. Show the filled out checklist and say, oh, I have symptoms. I could have Lyme disease. I could have Yersinia. I could have Campylobacter. What is Campylobacter? Never heard about that. Okay. Then maybe you go into and we discuss it on that level. And if you treat Campylobacter with doxycycline, you also treat, that's tricky, you treat Lyme disease, maybe with antibiotics. That's very tricky. The antibiotics are not specific for Lyme disease. If you treat Lyme disease, you also treat chlamydia, mycoplasma, that's good. So if you come from the chlamydia, mycoplasma side, it's not dangerous. You say, this patient has chlamydia pneumonia, which makes multiple sclerosis, allergic reactions, histamine intolerances, fatigue, atherosclerosis. So here we have chlamydia, pneumonia, the aerogen transmitted pathogen. And if you treat it with azithromycin, metronidazole, rifampin, you also treat Lyme disease. So that's very tricky, Maybe this could be also a way for some, or all of us to break this David versus Goliath match. We are a little too weak for that. But the acceptance for chlamydia is much better than it is for Borrelia burgdorferi if you go not to the Lyme disease expression. Just a tip for patients.
Wow, that's so helpful.
Yeah, the checklist costs nothing, You don't need a test. You know a direction. What you have seen, the dogs and the cats play a massive, really important role in this Lyme disease complexities. Toxoplasmosis, Bartonellosis, the cat scratch disease, the toxoplasma also. But we have also the problems with the dogs. This is very, very, let me say now for us famous, the number one infection is toxocariasis, toxocaracanis. This is a parasite. It's in the dogs, the stool, in the stool of the dogs, and you pick up your keys from the ground, and there's a little stool from the dog. You don't see it, and then you eat it up, and then you get neuropsychiatric symptoms. You get chronic fatigue. You get arthritis, and you think it's Lyme disease, but it's not Lyme disease. It's toxocariasis or a combination with it. So or ascaris. We have so many now. We find toxoplasma, and you cannot imagine in this parasital world. This is so important also to get a consciousness for your pets, for your dogs and cats. So I think a lot of us are infected with worms and helminths and parasites from the cats and the dogs, and we don't know about that. The vets know better than us about how to diagnose and treat the parasites. So we need to check this.
That's what I always think is so crazy. The vets here in the United States, they know about Lyme disease for dogs, and they're on top of it. They'll treat. They even have vaccines for the animals for Lyme disease, but they will treat the dog or the cat or whatever right away for Lyme disease. Whereas we as humans have to go years and years and years being misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. And then when they find it, it's just a total shit show, So yes. And babesia. Dogs can die from babesiosis, Also blood transfusions, you could die. There are a lot of babesia and blood transfusions also in America, and you die intensive care patient from blood transfusion, not your own. So from other people not tested for babesia in the erythrocyte concentrates. And interestingly, there's a story I want to tell you when I came by that chlamydia pneumonia. This is also on the ticks, but we don't know if it's tick transmitted. Eva Sabi found chlamydia pneumonia with aerogen in the ticks. And this chlamydia pneumonia story in Australia. So the koalas, they got infected with chlamydia pneumonia and they got fatigue. It makes fatigue. And then the park rangers pick up the koalas from the trees, and then they have hospitals, the vets, for the koalas. They are giving or gave them azithromycin, which is an antibiotic, infusions in the hospitals against chronic fatigue, against chlamydia, which makes arthritis. And then the koalas get fit. And then they bring the vets and the park rangers back the koalas on the trees.
That's reality. You can go to the koala hospitals there in Australia.
Whoa.
It's not a joke. It's evidence-based medicine. There are papers. But if a park ranger is telling you now, oh, I have chlamydia infection, I have fatigue. No, you don't have it. You're psychiatric. You're
Right.
crazy. Yeah, you get antidepressants. You don't get diagnosed and treated. That's ridiculous. That's so ridiculous.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know, like, I know Sophie's been through this too. I know thousands of Lyme patients have been through this. You go to the doctor, and if you tell them you can't sleep, they give you something to sleep. You tell them you don't have any energy, they give you something for energy. You can't go to the bathroom, they give you something for that. Before long, you got like 25, 30, 40 pills a day, but they're not treating, like, getting to the root cause, like what you said, the parasites, the mold, the yeast, the viruses, the Lyme in general. It's a ladder of treatment. And like, if they would understand that, and I've only met a few doctors that understood this ladder of treatment, and the ones that got it are the ones that have success in treating their patients. And they also don't use like a cookie cutter protocol. They personalize the protocol to their patients.
Angie, you brought it now to the point. I forgot this. The doctors are all doing symptomatic therapies. Symptomatic, that's the word.
Okay.
They just treat the symptoms. They treat your ear. They treat your eyes. They treat your stomach ache, but they don't see it holistic. They're not educated. The next generation of medical students, they don't know anything about that, because they're all fixed on one organ system. And Lyme disease still, it's a multisystemic problem. So it can affect the hormones. It can affect the autoimmune. It can affect your ears. Everything can move everywhere in your body. Your heart, your nerve system, and that makes it so complicated. It's really not so easy to switch the next new generation of medical doctors to a holistic approach to that. It's really complicated. It's not. The time has evolved into symptomatic pharmaceutical therapies, symptomatic pharmaceutical drugs. Painkillers, what you mentioned, but it's holistic. These infections are all holistic, and that makes it so difficult. It's a full-time job. So what we need is a qualification of tick-borne disease or vector-borne diseases experts in diagnosing and treating it. It's a mosquito bite. It's not just Lyme disease. It's chikungunya or whatever. It's Hanta. It's Ebola. It's maybe SARS-CoV-2. What we need is urgently a qualification and education for them from people who know a little about it. And the universities, they are just one-way street. They all just, we have Bartonella. You don't have Bartonella, but maybe it's rickettsia. And the Bartonella professor doesn't know about rickettsia. They are all monovalent. They are just running horses in one direction. Universities don't have the holistic approaches. The same situation. They are highly qualified. No matter about that. No matter. But the holistic approach, whole body medicine, not possible for them.
No, because they learn to treat with a pill, with a pharmaceutical, because that's what makes money. That's what makes them money.
Yeah, and Angie, what I want to mention also, what I don't like, what I was not educated in the 80s in my medical time when I was student, the corticosteroids, immune suppression. They all give like hell corticosteroids now. I don't understand that, to be honest. There are not many indications for that, if you are very well educated internal medicine like me. But they all use corticosteroids. What's happening? Reactivation of Borrelia viruses, patient getting more sick, diabetes mellitus coming, cortisol problems with your neck, and so on and so on. These side effects, and just, I prescribe some corticosteroids or acetylcysteine for something, no, that's not the way of medicine, And then if you have the problem, you get another pill for some of the side effects, and then you get the next pill for some of the side effects of the second pill. This is circulus vitiosus. So we are cycling around that, and we don't come forward, and the patient is suffering. And in the end, you get depressed, and all the stories.
Right. Well, I learned a long time ago. I learned back in 2014 because there was a doctor that put me on steroids. and you actually feel better for just a little bit. Well, then this other Lyme doctor said, no, you can't take steroids when you have Lyme disease. It will make you feel better temporarily. When you stop the steroids, then it like put the Lyme on steroids and it comes back out like fiercer than it was. And they were right. So
exactly in the beginning, this is what we learned. It helps you. It's anti-inflammatory, like antibiotics also can work that way. But in the final end, it's still destroying your immune system. So the corticosteroids are destroying your immune system. And that's the problem. And we need support of our immune systems, Since SARS-CoV-2, we learned about that. We need a vitamin C, D with K2, the combination D3, K2. We need this, What I take every day is L-lysine as an example, combination D3 with K2. So we can do a lot of maybe biofilm breaker like the nattokinase, which is really good. So we have a lot of options in doing that. But it's complicated doing that, and who knows about that? And then you get attacked if the doctors don't understand. But we don't want to talk about so much attacks. We need conclusions. We need positive aspects and to look forward. It doesn't bring anything to criticize always. We need to think positive. That's the way.
Yes. So we wanted to know if I see you all over on Facebook. I see you on social media and I see you doing interviews. You're like literally everywhere right now. Is there anything you want to talk to us about like that? Tell us what you're doing. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up, things that we can look to watch you to learn more?
Yeah, I think we need also more studies, and where Professor Gilbert and Professor Jack Lambert in Ireland, they have built up a group, also Garth Ehrlich from ILADF, from ILADS, Drexel University professor. So we need study designs, we need motivation, we need money for studies. I think the only chance we have to break this is studies, evidence-based. We will try that. But nevertheless, it's a really difficult thing to do that. But if we cannot do the studies, we will have problems with it, So with acceptance, the only chance we need to show evidence. It's good if you say, I've experience with my dark field microscopy, I've experience with apheresis, I have experience with the hyperthermia, I've experienced. But what we need is hard facts, It's not enough to do I know it's difficult, it's really complicated. But first of all, we need to do a case definition. What is really a Lyme disease patient? It's really difficult because environmental medicine, electrosmog, what I mentioned, the other infections, parasites, they all play a role in the peeling the onion model. And this makes it so complicated. But on the other side, we need to do it ourselves, and there's no support from universities. I know there's a lot of money in America now. They try to do something, better tests. We have good tests. We don't need better tests for Lyme disease. We have the best tests. We have the ELISpot. We have the tick-plex. We find it out. It's not the problem, It's better to invest more in education, in the holistic approach of infections, the students, and to learn about Bartonella. What is Bartonella? We need James Schaller in this group. James is perfect in Bartonella and Babesia education. So we need the experts in an expert group, I would say, also Rich Horowitz and maybe other experts who could help us, Jack Lambert from Europe. So we are doing in ILADS now something, a European conference, biofilms. This is a challenge for the future, for sure. How to diagnose biofilm. I think there will be tests in the future. How to diagnose persistiforms, also macrophages models, macrophages tests. But what I can tell you in the end, it's all what I have my own experience with a lot of other patients, clinics in the world. It's a 3I. Diagnose and treat infection. The first I, diagnose and treat the inflammation. Second I, diagnose and treat the immune dysfunction. Third I, and then you will win. Otherwise you will lose.
Very true.
That's that.
Very true. So, Sophie, do you have anything else?
No, I'm processing everything. It's been
amazing. It's a lot of information.
It's been so good.
This is
Yeah,
awesome.
I come to England. In June, I'm in England. I have a
Oh,
talk
are
there.
you?
Yeah, maybe we could sit in London. Sophie, I could
Yeah.
interview the APN conference there also. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll have a look into that.
We will
Definitely.
change the world a little, a little.
Of course it will. Of course.
Yeah, together.
Yeah.
Well, Armin, I think like you're a wealth of information and you've given us a lot to think about and process today. We are so grateful for you to come on and talk with us. We'd love to have you back anytime. Anytime you want to come on and talk Lyme, we'd love to have you. You learn new things. Come back and share.
Yeah, and if you have a doctor who's interested in laboratory tests, send them to my laboratory. I have had now a doctor from Iceland. I show them how a Western blot works, how immunoblot, how the ticks, then they understood, you know. So it's good to if you want to discuss about laboratory tests, you need to understand what is the pro and con of a test, you know. Send every doctor, or we could do a webinar for doctors interested in laboratory tests to maybe a real life action in laboratory, visual education for them to understand a little more, you know. So that's, I think, one of the first steps. I don't want to say I'm the best, but I'm doing now 40 years just laboratory medicine or laboratory work. So you could learn a little from me, but I'm not the prophet. There are other good people too, for sure, in the world. Yeah.
Well, of course, but I think you're up there at the top.
I think you're a bit, yeah. I think so.
And you come also. You come to Germany. I show you how laboratory tests work.
Oh,
That'd be cool.
That. That would be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd love that. All right.
Thank
well,
you very
Armin,
much, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day and relax.
Yes. Until next
strength.
time, we'll see you guys on Getting on My Nerves. Like, share, and subscribe. We've got for the rest of the month, I think for Lyme Awareness Month, we have your story and my story. So look forward to doing that. All right. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Time has gone by, and God knows I've tried. Still I'm here trying to work out the best way to survive. I held on to hope, I put on a show, and holding back tears cause my fears, they won't let me go. And when times get easy, and hold on to the good memories,